When the Bulls made their moves at the trade deadline, the Jaden Ivey trade was one that looked like a steal initially for the Chicago Bulls, considering the potential that Jaden Ivey had on the court. Well, now the way that everything shook out, the Bulls may very well not extend a qualifying offer to Jaden Ivey. We're going to talk about those and the recent rumors around that, what's going on there. We're also going to talk about the Chicago Bulls and their game plan for this offseason, which we tend to get more and more details about the Bulls could be planning this offseason. And while the potential's there, we'll see if AK can nail it. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all. And a lot of people are talking about the Jaden Ivey thing. Jaden Ivey and the situation that the Bulls are in with Jaden Ivey is one that they didn't necessarily have to put themselves in, right? Like, of course, the trade deadline went the way that the trade deadline went. The Bulls ended up making a series of moves. They get guards like Anthony Simons. They get Jaden Ivey back. This is all before they even trade Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu, as a matter of fact, that they made those moves to bring those guards in here. And while initially trading for a 24-year-old who was a former top 5 pick and who at sometimes his athleticism and his ability to get to the rim, get to the free throw line, all those things, when you look at Jaden Ivey, in his first 3 years with the Detroit Pistons. Those first 2 years, the Pistons just weren't a good team, but you saw the Jaden Ivey and how he was rising in that team, right? You saw how he was, turning the player that he was turning into. Then in year 3, when the Detroit Pistons do start winning, Jaden Ivey plays the first 30 games, and he ends up breaking his leg. Complete break of the leg, right? And that happened at a time where Jaden Ivey turned himself into a 40% shooter. He was turning into a much better catch-and-shoot player as well over that time, and looking like the young athletic guard that was on his way up. And there's just no doubt about that, right? And then he breaks his leg. And even though that a broken leg, like for example, Paul George has one of the most horrific broken leg injuries ever. Look at how Paul George came back, right, after that injury. Of course, he had to be down for a while. Now, Jaden Ivey broke his leg. He returned back in November, and he's never really been quite the same player. And then on top of breaking the leg, he has to have an off-season procedure where he has to get fragments removed or, particles, whatever they said. There's stuff in his knee that they had to get out there and remove. But there's no ligament damage, nothing like that. And so things look on paper like Jaden Ivey should make a complete return from this. But then you get into what the result has been. Jaden Ivey's played 4 games for the Chicago Bulls so far, just 4. In those 4 games, he's averaged 11.5 minutes per game. He's averaged, 11.5 points per game on 28 minutes per game, which is 12 minutes more than what he was getting with Detroit. He was only playing 16.8. He was playing 28.8 here, shooting 41% from the field, 38% from 3. The numbers themselves aren't necessarily terrible. But then when you look at things like him getting to the free throw line, right? He was getting to the free throw line 2.5 times per game, which was up from the 1.5 times for 1.2 times per game, but still lower than about the 4 free throw attempts he was averaging per game with the Detroit Pistons. Again, his athleticism and his ability to get to the rim. Those are things that just have stood out that's not been there. He doesn't trust that leg in that first initial burst. Now, how much of that's going to come back? That's the question that you have to ask, right? Now, you look at the leg injury that he had, and, 16 to 18 months full recovery time from that isn't completely out of the norm. It's just not out of the norm of that. But when you hear the comments from Jaden Ivey, the comments from the Chicago Bulls being shut down for 2 weeks, we could be in a realistic place where Jaden Ivey's time with the Chicago Bulls may be already over. Regardless if he plays another game in a Bulls uniform or not this season, his time with the Bulls may be over. The Bulls may seriously not extend him a qualifying offer. That may be something that seriously does not happen there, is that he may not get a qualifying offer when it comes down to that. And that would be, it would suck. But, with the Bulls having the draft first, let's say they do draft a guard with their own pick, which is not outside the realm of possibility, maybe they just don't want to deal with the headache of Jaden Ivey, let him recover somewhere else. Now, that does not mean that Jaden Ivey's career still can't turn around. It doesn't mean that trust may not come back in that leg for Jaden Ivey. And that's the risk versus reward that the Chicago Bulls have to ask themselves. trading Kevin Huerter for Jaden Ivey, you're at a wash. Were you probably going to retain Kevin Huerter at the end of the season? Probably not, right? Like Kevin Huerter, between him wanting to go other places, if that's even what he wanted to do, or just because you want to change the dynamic of your roster, that it was probably going to be, especially with the way that the trade went down, Kevin Huerter was probably not going to be back in the Bulls uniform. So the trade for Jaden Ivey initially looked like it could be one that's a win for the Chicago Bulls regardless, because you're getting a young guard back that you can take a look at. You're going to see how he plays out. And even though Kevin Huerter with the Detroit Pistons has not been great, I mean, if we're just going to be clear there, right? He's averaging 4.3 points per game, shooting the ball 42% from the field and 11% from three since he's been with the Detroit Pistons. And it goes to show you how, like, the role, like, and Kevin Huerter, listen, passing-wise, defensive-wise, had some moments, so he actually absolutely was really good for the Chicago Bulls this year. But this is where that sometimes taking that risk by AK, it just doesn't pay off. Now, I'm not one to tell you guys that that is for sure not going to pay off. I'm not going to say that because who knows? For all we know, the Bulls can get Jaden Ivey on a really reasonable contract, maybe a 2-year extension with maybe a player or team option in year 3. And, yeah, it sucks then that if he does, get back to the player that he was, we'll have to turn around and get right back into a contract negotiation with him. But, hey, the Bulls may use this to actually sign a former top 5 pick and get him on a really reasonable extension so we can see what he can bring in. It may not be over yet. I'm not saying that. But I do think the Bulls have to seriously ask themselves, what's the risk that they're willing to take on Jaden Ivey? And it's added by the glut of guards that we have here now. For what it's worth, the Bulls having 6 guards, some of that guard depth has already gone away. Jaden Ivey's out for 2 weeks. We don't know when Anthony Simons is coming back with his wrist injury that's going on there. The Bulls can sit that out as well to try to take a look at these other guards. That still leaves, of course, Trey Jones, Josh Giddey. You're still looking at Colin Sexton and Rob Dillingham and others in that case if those guys are sitting. But it's this. Jaden Ivey was one of the pieces on this team that you looked at and you're like, if this does end up working out, this was a great trade for the Chicago Bulls, and it could wind up just being, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. And so we'll see what's going to happen here overall. Like, we'll see if the growth's happening. But the thing that makes it the most concerning, I think, of this thing of all with Jaden Ivey is the fact that Jaden Ivey's comments about himself. And while a lot of Jaden Ivey's quotes are going to go towards God and his religion and spirituality, because that is who he is as a person, that's something that he always is going to go back to, saying that the OJI is dead is not the greatest headline that you want to read from somebody that on the court doesn't look like themselves. Off the court now seems like there's some doubt, both internally from the Chicago Bulls and from Jaden Ivey himself. And all those things lead to this space where it's just like Jaden Ivey is so much potential that was there in Jaden Ivey. And I think for people that didn't watch a lot of Detroit Pistons basketball, people may not realize how good Jaden Ivey looked, the trajectory that Jaden Ivey looked like he was on, even though the Pistons have admitted, like, he didn't fit the offense. Jaden Ivey had to score kind of around the offense, outside the confines of the offense, because he didn't necessarily fit their offensive philosophies and styles, but he was so good they found ways to work that into his game, and then he also became a better off-ball player, right? So right now, it looks like the Chicago Bulls may not keep Jaden Ivey around. That just is, right? Now, at the end of the day, will the Bulls end up looking competent if they do cut ties from him? It really depends on how much he becomes back, because I'll tell you what, it can end up being something that ends up working out where the Bulls look at it and we say, hey, we decided not to bring somebody back in restricted free agency that just did not look like themselves. Maybe he never recovers. Maybe it goes that he does leave. And let's say, around this time next year, he starts looking like himself again by then. And then you're looking at it and saying, damn, and the Bulls had him as a restricted free agent and let him walk for nothing. That's why it's not always as easy as what us as fans make it out to be. You have to weigh so much of the possibility and the potential of the return there. And that's where the Bulls sit at right now with this Jaden Ivey thing. They have to really review this and take a calculated risk. Now, for what it's worth, I do hope that this isn't the beginning of the end for Jaden Ivey in his career. I hope that it's not the beginning of the end of that for somebody who's still so young and should have so much of their NBA basketball career left in front of them based off what he's shown. But at the same time, a Bulls team, that risk has never really paid off for them, especially when trying to bet on former players with injury that just don't look like themselves. I don't know if AK really has the risk tolerance for that, but maybe he does. I want to hear from you guys on this one, though. The Jaden Ivey situation and where we are with it. If the Bulls do decide to extend a qualifying offer for Jaden Ivey, and then, of course, try to negotiate a more long-term contract with him, What would you be willing to pay based off what we know about Jaden Ivey, both what he could get back to and also what he's been since his injury? What's the number that you're willing to put on that? To me, I say this, 12 to 15, and even then may be too much, right? But I look at it and say you want him probably somewhere around that initial extension you gave for Kobe and Ayo. Ayo got $9 million, Kobe got about 12, right? So if you can get them somewhere between that dollar amount, I think that's, perfectly fine. And then, maybe not the full 5 years. Maybe you do 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, to just see if he can get back to that player that he once was. Maybe. Let me know what you guys think on that and what will happen with Jaden Ivey. But I touched briefly on the Bulls' glut of guards, right? And we already know there's been a clutter of guards here for the Chicago Bulls. There's just no way around that. But with some of the injuries, more things have opened up for that guard rotation for the Chicago Bulls. Jaden Ivey, down and out. He's gone. Anthony Simons is out, right? And with the Chicago Bulls prioritizing draft position over winning, I'm sure they're going to hold those guys out as long as possible, right? Now, we did see in the last game, I believe the starting lineup was Josh Giddey, Isaac Okoro, Manas Muzelis, Gershon Yabusele, and Jalen Smith. But Jalen Smith also on the mend and out with the calf strain, right? So you're probably putting Nick Richards in there if you can. But this injury shit for the Bulls, it's just getting worse, right? But the guards, you still want to evaluate that. And while I know, guys are looking at Colin Sexton, like he may not be a long-term player here for the Bulls, and he may not be. Rob Dillingham, a player that a lot of people are excited to see what he could possibly turn into and become. Trey Jones, Josh Giddey, we know that they're firm. They have their positions. They have their roles. We've seen it all over the course of the season. If they're healthy and they stay on this team, we know what their roles are going to be, right? The guard situation for the Chicago Bulls is going to be the one to watch the rest of the way because some of these guys you're going to want to try to keep. And I've said that before. Whether you try to make a push to keep Anthony Simons, even if you just decide to go to greener pastures, if you feel him in the backcourt is good with Josh Giddey, if you look to keep Colin Sexton and what he can be as a spark plug off the bench, Rob Dillingham, you're trying to evaluate to see if he's even an NBA player, right? And I get it. He has his supporters, he has his doubters, he has all of that when it comes down to it, right? But as it stands right now, the Bulls have doubled down on guards. And where we are with guards right now is a further highlight on the trade deadline overhaul really had no direction. There's no direction other than, hey, let's make sure that we're not taking long-term salary back. If we can get some young, promising players in that, cool. Not to say that I think the Bulls try to give Missy, they try to give Tari Eason. I do think there was a version in this trade deadline where the Bulls actually make moves that actually try to keep them at a place of trying to push for the play-in this year. I completely think that. You get Eve Missy, you get Tari Eason, that's a team that's then still trying to compete in the Eastern Conference. So that just goes to show to me that the Bulls aren't committed to this tank thing long term. They're more so looking at this. They looked at the opportunity. They surveyed what was available. That's probably why the trades for Jaden Ivey and Colin Sexton happened first before the Bulls traded Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White, because they were trying to get players, seeing if they can get players back like Eve Missy and Tari Eason at the deadline. They weren't able to complete it. That to me tells me a team that looked at the options in front of them at the deadline and said, hey, this is what's here. The win now moves didn't work out. The next best thing that we can do now to get some really good player in here is let's prioritize the draft. We're going to trade off these guys. We're going to keep our cap flexibility, and we're going to do that. That is the long-term vision. But the roster that's here right now, there is no direction for this version of the roster other than lottery odds and draft positioning. That is the direction for this roster right now. There are too many guards on this team, not enough minutes when it comes down to it. And so you have to look at it. Who are you prioritizing? Is it Rob Dillingham in the development and see what you have here, even though he's a small guard, a shooting guard in a point guard's body that may have some issues? And I think for Rob Dillingham to really stick on in the league, he's going to have to let his passing come along further and then let the scoring complement that. You have Sexton and Collins who, of course, hey, listen, these are guys that are veterans. And they are unrestricted free agents that very well could want to join winning teams. And there could be some winning teams that need that scoring punch that they bring. We've seen Anthony Simons take on a lesser role as far as the scoring output, not scoring 20 points per game, but helping a team win like the Boston Celtics. And sometimes when players get a taste of that, it is what it is. Now, let me make no mistake about it. Simons is the perfect type of sharpshooting guard you want next to a pass-first guard like Josh Giddey. Now, of course, if he was better defensively, you make it even better, but you're not going to get everything that you want. You have Josh Giddey, you have Trey Jones that can operate as generals on the court, right, to operate and organize that offense. A guy like Anthony Simons can fit right into that. But again, with Simons, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But Dillingham, Ivey, Colin Sexton, and Anthony Simons all fit really similar roles when it comes down to it. And I think Rob Dillingham, long-term backup point guard, that's just my opinion of what he is right now. We'll see if that ceiling can change. Ivey, Sexton, and Simons are all very similar as far as on-ball scoring guards. Now, some are more effective than others and can be better off-ball than others. Simons is the one that's really stands out as really being really good off-ball compared to those other guys. But they do offer limited positional versatility because of those guys' size and their stature and things like that. But none of those guys, despite their height, are pure points. They're just not. They're not going to be playing a lot of point guard for you. They're going to be playing more scoring guard. And Colin Sexton can be a scoring point guard, of course, with what you have around him. That's the thing what it comes down to. The Bulls are still evaluating this. And I don't know what comes out of this. I don't know how it ends up working out in the long run, but we'll see. But the Bulls are picking the perfect time to do this because the tank race is on right now for the Chicago Bulls, and it's on. And we've seen it. It's just, there's no doubt about it. The Bulls are tanking. There's still people that have their questions for it. The Bulls' upcoming schedule is going to be absolutely tough with them. Now, they're going to also face off against some teams that are also going to be tanking, right? You look against the game with the Milwaukee Bucks that are coming up, right? And you look at that game and you're like, all right, are the Bucks actually trying to tank? Are they going to be trying to, like, we heard that Giannis is going to be coming back, things like that. We'll see, right? And see what happens with that when we play the Charlotte Hornets, who are already right now, we're 3 games back of the Charlotte Hornets for the number 10 spot. Doesn't look like we're trying to get off of that, right? So there's that part of it. Then you look at the Utah Jazz, the Memphis Grizzlies. These are also opponents that are coming up as well for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are in an important period of their tank, and that's what it is. They are in an important stretch of that's important for the tank the rest of the way of this one, right? And so the Bulls right now, when you look at it, in reality, getting any higher than the 8th worst record in the league is going to be very difficult for the Chicago Bulls to do that. That's just it. It's going to be difficult for them to do that. It is what it is there. And that's just going to be the reality of it. You have the Dallas Mavericks sitting there as the 7th worst record in the league. And I don't know how that's going to go for the Mavs. Of course, they got Cooper Flagg, who has looked better and better as the season's gone on, and they've won some tough games. But all when it comes down to it is that the Bulls, in draft positioning, they're in the spot right now where, hey, you have an opportunity to move wholeheartedly into that. Right now, you have the 9th worst record in the league. You just had the 10th worst record in the league. Before the All-Star break, we came back from the All-Star break, so the Bulls have already moved and increased their positioning right now when it comes down to that. So, that's something that you're looking at as well with all of this. But where it stands right now, I mean, things are going to, like, what the Bulls have and their ability to tank right now is where you want to be. The Bulls right now have a 4.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick, a 4.8 chance at number 2, 5.2 at number 3, and 5.7 for the number 4 pick. They have a 20% chance to move into the top 4, which is basically right where you want them to go as well. If the Bulls can get in the top 4, that's a crazy, crazy leap for a team that, honestly, at the start of the season wasn't that bad to be that high. And that's what the Bulls are prioritizing. That's what's on the line right now for the Chicago Bulls. So while this losing is tough, and a lot of Bulls fans, losing sucks. Losing doesn't feel good. Losing is not what we want to see. While it all sucks for this team, at the end of the day, this is what they want. And this is the shot that they're taking. They're taking a shot at getting lottery luck to try to move up. And they're pairing that with their offseason plans. And we'll see what's going to happen. Things are wide open for the Bulls this offseason. The draft is wide open. The positions they can take are wide open, right? They can really take the best player available and not just look at the ceiling, also consider the floor of a player, and they can do that, right? Then you look at the games left for the Chicago Bulls, and while the games aren't necessarily homework, it's not that anymore, the Bulls right now also have spending power in 2026 offseason. Now, the question with that is that with the Bulls losing, how many free agents are really going to want to come here to the Chicago Bulls? But we've already made it known. We've heard restricted free agents like Ben Mathurin, Walker Kessler, Peyton Watson, Tari Eason, Mark Williams. Those are the players that the Bulls are going to focus on this offseason, and that's great. If they can get one of those guys, and they can get them cheaper, it is great. All that is, it's cool to get that done. But if that all fails for the Bulls, and this is what I want to end this show on, even if the Bulls do have a great draft, let's say they get the Portland pick, let's say that they get that they do get some luck and move into the top 4. If they can't also nail free agency to a degree and get some players that are in here, I think the Bulls' best bet at that point is to turn the cap space around and take on bad money from other teams and stack further assets. The reason why I think that is this. If you're taking on bad short-term money, even if it's more than 1 year, now the Bulls have typically not wanted to take salary back more than a year. If they're willing even to take 1, 2 years, that then preserves cap space to where by time your number 1 pick this season Miles Buzelis has more time to grow. Josh Giddey has more time to grow. The player you draft with the Portland pick, these players have more time to grow. In 2 years, you go back with optimal cap space. Maybe then you do become a team that teams around the league want to look at. And that's the thing that you have to get to. The Portland Trailblazers pick, we're on Portland watch. They're 9th right now in the West. They are 2.5 games back of the Golden State Warriors, with the Golden State Warriors are 4-6, and the Portland Trailblazers have been 5-5 in the last 10. It's not out the realm of possibility that the Trailblazers get up to that 8 seed. I keep pointing that out because getting to that 8 seed means they only have to win 1 out of 2 games to get to where they need to get to and get into the playoffs. And that's something to also look out for here. This Bulls offseason plan, that you see the outline of the plan there, you see it, but it still remains so many variables with it that, of course, those variables are going to get answered more as the season goes on, and we'll see. We will see what's going to happen. The Bulls have 13 second-round picks. They have their own first-round pick. They potentially have the Portland pick. This is a opportunity for Bulls to really go hunting this offseason. Will they get it done is the question there. And with Artūras Karnišovas running the show, a lot of Bulls fans are going to say, hell no, they don't have faith that they're going to do it. We just got to see if they will, man. But we'll see. The tanking race is heating up. The guard situation, of course, is messy. And this offseason, it's going to define, I think, if AK even has any runway left to even turn this thing around. But I want to hear your thoughts down below. Is Ivey already done in Chicago? Should Rob Dillingham be playing more? And how high do you think this team is going to pick in the draft? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified every time we drop an episode. You guys can follow us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.